The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between three star systems like a giant metal flower. Its 5 arms stretched out into space, and each arm was bigger than most planets. Ships from hundreds of different worlds docked at its ports every day. Today was special because the big yearly meeting was starting. Jake Morrison walked through the main corridor of the station and looked around with wide eyes. He had never seen so many different types of aliens in one place before. There were tall blue beings with 4 arms walking next to short, furry creatures that looked like walking carpets. Flying aliens with wings made of light moved above his head while others crawled on the walls with dozens of legs. Jake was new to this job. The Earth government had sent him here as part of their diplomatic team. Humans had only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago, and they were still trying to figure out how everything worked. Jake was nervous but excited to be here. The main meeting hall was huge and could hold 10,000 beings easily. Jake found his seat in the human section and looked around. Every species had their own area with special chairs and equipment made for their bodies. Some needed water tanks, while others sat on platforms of ice or fire. That was when he first saw her. Princess Zarath sat alone in the Veltar section. The Veltar were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors who valued strength above all else. They were tall and muscular with skin that looked like it was made of bronze metal. Their eyes glowed with inner fire, and they moved like predators ready to strike. But Princess Zarath was different. She sat in a chair with wheels because her legs did not work. Jake could see that her lower body was covered with a blanket, but it was clear that something was wrong with her legs. What struck him most was how alone she looked. The other Veltar delegates sat far away from her. They would not look at her or speak to her. When servers brought food and drinks, they would serve everyone else first and only give her something when she asked for it directly. Even then, they acted like touching her tray might make them sick. Jake watched this happen several times during the first day of meetings. He saw how the princess would try to join conversations, but the others would turn away or start talking about something else. He saw how her shoulders would slump when this happened, and how she would look down at her hands. Other species treated her the same way. When delegates walked past the Veltar section, they would nod politely to the other warriors, but their eyes would skip right over the princess like she was not there. During break times, she would sit by herself while hundreds of other beings talked and laughed around her. Jake found this very strange. In his preparation for this job, he had read about Princess Zarath. She was the daughter of Emperor Velthak, who ruled one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. She had studied at the best schools and could speak 17 different languages. Her teachers said she was brilliant at understanding politics and strategy, so why was everyone ignoring her? On the second day, Jake decided to find out more. During lunch break, he walked over to the Veltar section. The other warriors saw him coming, and their hands moved toward their weapons. Humans were still new, and many aliens did not trust them yet. "I wish to speak with Princess Zarath," Jake said in his best formal voice. The warriors looked confused. One of them was a general named Caxtor, who had scars all over his face from many battles. "The human wishes to speak with the Broken One," Caxtor said to his companions. They all laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "She cannot help you," another warrior said. "She is useless for real work. Speak to us instead." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "I will speak with the princess," he said again. The warriors looked at each other and shrugged. They went back to their food and acted like Jake was no longer there. Jake walked over to where Princess Zarath sat by herself. Up close, he could see that she was beautiful in the way her people were beautiful. Her bronze skin had patterns of gold running through it, and her eyes were the color of deep purple flowers. But there was sadness in those eyes that made Jake's heart hurt. "Your Highness," Jake said, and gave her a small bow. "My name is Jake Morrison, from the Earth Diplomatic Team. May I sit with you?" Princess Zarath stared at him for a long moment. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Jake realized that no one had probably asked to sit with her in a very long time. "You may sit," she said finally. Her voice was soft and musical, even though she seemed nervous. Jake pulled up a chair and sat down across from her. "I have been watching the meetings," he said. "Your people discuss mining rights in the Outer Rim, but they do not seem to understand the legal problems with the hegemony claims. You looked like you wanted to say something about that." The princess's eyes went wide. "You were watching me." "Yes," Jake said simply. "You seem to understand these issues better than anyone else in your delegation. I was hoping you might share your thoughts." For the first time since Jake had been watching her, the princess sat up straight. Color came into her cheeks and her eyes began to glow brighter. "The hegemony is using old treaty language from before the War of Three Suns," she said. "If my people agree to their terms, now they will lose access to those systems forever. But everyone is so focused on the immediate profits that they cannot see the long-term danger." Jake nodded. "That matches my analysis exactly. Have you told your delegation this?" The princess looked down. "They do not ask for my advice," she said, quietly. Jake felt that anger again. Here was someone with valuable knowledge being ignored because of something she could not control. It reminded him of his sister back on Earth, who used a wheelchair after an accident. She was one of the smartest people he knew, but some people would treat her like she was stupid just because her legs did not work. "Well, I am asking," Jake said. "Would you tell me more about these treaty problems? I think the human delegation needs to understand this better." Princess Zarath looked up at him again. This time there was something like hope in her eyes. "You really want to know what I think?" she asked. "Yes," Jake said. "Very much." And for the first time in 15 years, someone actually listened to what Princess Zarath had to say. The next few days changed everything for Princess Zarath. Jake Morrison kept coming back to talk with her. Every morning during the breakfast break, he would walk over to the Veltar section and sit down beside her chair. The other warriors would shake their heads and mutter to each other, but Jake did not care. He asked her about everything. What did she think about the trade agreements? How should the council handle the rebellion in the Sigma sector? What were the real reasons behind the hegemony's new military buildup? Each time Jake asked these questions, the princess would light up like a star and share knowledge that amazed him. "The rebellion is not about freedom," she explained on the third day. "It is about water rights. The Sigma colonies have found new sources of clean water, but the core worlds want to control it. If the council could guarantee the colonies keep their water rights, the rebellion would end tomorrow." Jake wrote down everything she said. That evening he shared her ideas with the human delegation, and they were impressed. Ambassador Collins, who led the human team, started asking Jake to get more information from the princess. "This girl knows more about galactic politics than our entire intelligence department," Collins said. "Keep talking to her." But Jake found that he wanted to talk to Princess Zarath for reasons that had nothing to do with politics. She was funny when she relaxed and told stories about growing up in the Imperial Palace. She knew jokes in a dozen languages and could make him laugh even when he was tired from long meetings. More importantly, she listened to him too. When Jake talked about missing Earth and feeling lost among all these different alien cultures, the princess would nod and understand. She knew what it felt like to be alone in a crowd. "I have been alone my whole life," she told him one evening. They were sitting in the observation deck looking out at the stars. Most of the other delegates had gone to their rooms, but Jake and the princess often stayed up late talking. "But you are royalty," Jake said. "You must have hundreds of servants and guards around you all the time." Princess Zarath smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Being surrounded by people is not the same as having friends. My servants do what they must do because it is their job. My guards protect me because my father orders them to, but none of them choose to spend time with me because they want to." Jake looked at her profile in the starlight. "Is it because of your legs?" "Everything is because of my legs," she said quietly. "When I was small, I fell from a high tower in the palace. The healers saved my life, but they could not fix the damage to my spine. From that day forward, I became an embarrassment to my family." She turned her chair to face him. "My people believe that strength is everything. A warrior who cannot walk is not a warrior at all. A princess who cannot stand is not worthy of respect. I am a reminder that even royal blood can be flawed." Jake felt angry again, but this time it was not the quick anger from before. This was a deep, burning anger at the unfairness of it all. "That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard," he said. Princess Zarath looked surprised. "You should not speak that way about Veltar beliefs." "Why not?" Jake said. "They are wrong. Where I come from, we have a saying. We judge people by the content of their character, not by what their body can or cannot do. You have more character in your little finger than most beings have in their whole body." The princess stared at him. "You really believe that?" "Of course I do," Jake said. "You are one of the smartest people I have ever met. You are kind and funny, and you care about helping others, even though others have not been kind to you. If your people cannot see that, then they are blind." Tears started to run down the princess's cheeks. "No one has ever said anything like that to me before." Jake reached out and gently wiped away her tears. "Then they are all fools." Their friendship did not go unnoticed. Ambassador Kethvar of the Hegemony was a crafty old politician who had been playing galactic politics for 50 years. He saw opportunity in the growing bond between the human and the Veltar princess. Kethvar was a saurian, which meant he looked like a giant lizard that walked on 2 legs. His scales were dark green, and his eyes were like yellow jewels that missed nothing. He had been trying to weaken the Veltar Empire for decades, and he thought he saw a way to do it now. On the 5th day of the summit, Kethvar started spreading rumors. He whispered to other delegates that the humans were using the broken princess to spy on the Veltar military. He suggested that Jake Morrison was pretending to be her friend so he could learn Imperial secrets. "Look how the human spends all his time with the crippled one," Kethvar said to anyone who would listen. "Do you think that is an accident? The humans are clever. They know she is desperate for attention, so they use that weakness against her." The rumors spread quickly through the station. Delegates began to look at Jake and Princess Zarath with suspicion when they sat together. Some of the Veltar warriors started to mutter that perhaps they should stop the human from talking to their princess. But Jake and Princess Zarath did not know about the rumors yet. They were too busy enjoying each other's company. On the 6th day, Jake brought her a gift from the human section. It was a small device that could project holographic images. "This is a photo album from my homeworld," he said as he showed her how it worked. Images of Earth appeared in the air between them. Green forests and blue oceans and cities full of lights. "It is beautiful," Princess Zarath said as she watched the images change. "Is this where you grew up?" "In a place like this," Jake said, pointing to a small town surrounded by mountains. "My family has a farm there. We grow food and raise animals. It is very quiet compared to this place. Do you miss it?" "Every day," Jake admitted. "But this job is important. Humans need to prove we can be good members of the galactic community." Princess Zarath was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I would like to see your homeworld someday." Jake looked at her and felt something warm spread through his chest. "I would like to show it to you." They looked into each other's eyes, and both felt something changing between them. This was more than friendship now, but neither of them was ready to say it out loud yet. The next morning, everything fell apart. Emperor Velthak himself arrived at the station with a fleet of warships. He had received word about the rumors, and he was furious. The Emperor was even bigger and more frightening than his warriors. His skin was like polished metal, and his eyes burned like suns. He stormed into the meeting hall and demanded to speak with the human delegation immediately. Ambassador Collins and his team gathered quickly while Jake stood behind them trying to look calm. "You dare to insult my family," the Emperor roared. His voice was so loud that windows shook. "You send this boy to seduce my daughter and make her tell you our military secrets." Princess Zarath sat in her chair looking terrified. She tried to speak, but her father held up his hand for silence. "You thought we would not notice," the Emperor continued. "You thought you could use her weakness against us, but I see through your human tricks." Ambassador Collins tried to explain that there was no spy mission, but the Emperor would not listen. Jake felt his heart breaking as he watched Princess Zarath shrink down in her chair. All the confidence and happiness he had seen grow in her over the past week was disappearing. "Your Majesty," Jake said, stepping forward, "there has been a misunderstanding." The Emperor turned his burning gaze on Jake. "You will not speak," he said in a voice like thunder. "You have brought shame on both our peoples with your deception." But Jake was not going to let this happen. Not when he had finally found someone who understood him. Not when he had watched her bloom like a flower in sunlight. He took another step forward and met the Emperor's gaze directly. "I was not sent to spy on anyone," Jake said clearly. "I became friends with your daughter because she is remarkable. She is brilliant and kind and strong. If you cannot see that, then you do not deserve to be her father." The entire hall went silent. No one had ever spoken to Emperor Velthak that way. The princess looked at Jake with wonder and terror. She was sure he was about to die. The silence in the great hall stretched like a wire about to break. Every being in the room held their breath, waiting to see what Emperor Velthak would do to the human who had dared to challenge him. The Emperor's eyes burned brighter, and his massive hands clenched into fists that could crush bones. Princess Zarath looked between her father and Jake with pure terror in her eyes. She had seen her father's rage before and knew what it could do. Warriors twice Jake's size had been broken by the Emperor's bare hands when they showed even small signs of disrespect. But Jake did not back down. He stood straight and looked directly into the Emperor's burning gaze without flinching. Something inside him had changed over the past week. Every day he spent with Princess Zarath had made him care about her more. Now he realized that what he felt was not just friendship or even attraction. He was falling in love with her. You speak of my daughter like you know her, the Emperor said in a voice like grinding stone. But you know nothing. She is broken. She is weak. She brings shame to our bloodline. She is the strongest person I have ever met, Jake replied. She faces every day knowing that her own people reject her, but she never gives up. She studies and learns and tries to help others even though they treat her like she does not exist. That takes more courage than any warrior has ever shown. The other Veltar delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some of them were starting to look ashamed. They had all ignored the princess for years without really thinking about why. Emperor Velthak stepped closer to Jake. He was so tall that Jake had to crane his neck to look up at him. You think your pretty words will change anything? The Emperor snarled. She is still crippled. She will never walk. She will never fight. She can never lead our people. Who says a leader has to walk? Jake shot back. Who says strength only comes from fighting? Your daughter has a mind that could solve problems no warrior could even understand. She has knowledge that could prevent wars instead of starting them. She has compassion that could unite enemies instead of creating them. Princess Zarath felt tears running down her cheeks, but for the first time they were not tears of sadness. No one had ever defended her like this. No one had ever seen her as something more than her disability. She wanted to tell Jake to stop before her father killed him, but she also wanted him to keep talking forever. Ambassador Kethavar watched from his seat with satisfaction. His plan was working perfectly. The humans would be thrown out of the council and the Veltar would be humiliated. The hegemony would benefit from both outcomes. But then Jake did something that no one expected. He walked past the furious Emperor and went directly to Princess Zarath. He knelt down beside her chair so they were at the same eye level and took her hands in his. "Princess," he said softly, but his voice carried clearly through the silent hall. "I know this is not the time or place I would have chosen. I know this probably seems crazy. But I cannot wait any longer to tell you how I feel." Princess Zarath's eyes went wide. "Jake, what are you doing?" "I am asking for your heart," he said simply. "These past days have been the best of my life because I got to spend them with you. You make me laugh, and you make me think, and you make me want to be a better person. I do not care what anyone else thinks about your legs or your chair or anything else. I care about you." The hall erupted in shocked whispers. A human asking for the hand of an alien princess was unusual enough. A human asking for the hand of a disabled princess was unheard of. Princess Zarath stared at Jake in complete shock. "You cannot mean this," she whispered. "I am broken. I am worthless. My own people do not want me." "Then they are blind and stupid," Jake said firmly. "You are not broken. You are perfect exactly as you are. I love your mind and your heart and your strength. I love how you see the world and how you try to make it better. If you will have me, I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you how amazing you are." Emperor Velthak roared with rage. "You mock us," he bellowed. "You think to humiliate our family by pretending to want our damaged child." Jake stood up and turned to face the Emperor again. "I am not pretending anything. I love your daughter, and I am asking her to marry me. If that humiliates you, then maybe you should think about why." The Emperor's rage reached a boiling point. His warriors reached for their weapons, thinking their leader was about to order an attack. But instead, the Emperor did something even more dangerous. "You claim to love what no one else could love," he said with deadly quiet. "You claim she has value when everyone knows she has none. Very well, human. Prove it." The Emperor gestured to one of his largest warriors. General Rexthor is our greatest champion. He has never lost a battle. If you truly believe my daughter is worth fighting for, then face him in single combat." General Rexthor stepped forward and Princess Zarath gasped. The general was enormous, even by Veltar standards. His bronze skin was covered in scars from 100 battles, and his muscles bulged like steel cables. He carried weapons that could cut through armor like paper. "If you win," the Emperor continued, "you may have her worthless hand in marriage. When you lose and die, your people will learn the price of mocking the Veltar Empire." Jake felt his mouth go dry. He was a diplomat, not a warrior. He had basic military training, but nothing that could prepare him to fight a champion like Rexthor. The general was probably genetically enhanced and had been training to fight since he was a child. But when Jake looked at Princess Zarath, he saw the hope and fear warring in her eyes. She believed he would die. But she also believed he was the only person who had ever truly cared about her. How could he walk away from that? "I accept," Jake said. Princess Zarath cried out. "No, Jake, please. He will kill you. I am not worth your life." Jake knelt beside her chair again and took her face gently in his hands. "You are worth everything to me," he said. "I would rather die fighting for you than live knowing I was too much of a coward to try." He kissed her forehead softly, and she closed her eyes, feeling more loved in that moment than she had in her entire life. The Emperor smiled coldly. "The combat will take place in 1 hour in the main arena. All delegates are invited to watch the human die for his foolishness." As the crowd began to file out of the hall, Princess Zarath grabbed Jake's hand. "Please do not do this," she begged. "Run away, take a ship, and go back to Earth. I cannot bear to watch you die because of me." "I am not going to die," Jake said with more confidence than he felt. "I am going to win, and then we are going to have the most amazing wedding this galaxy has ever seen." Despite everything, Princess Zarath found herself smiling. "You are completely insane." "Probably," Jake agreed. "But I am insane about you." Ambassador Collins and the rest of the human delegation surrounded Jake as they left the hall. "This is suicide," Collins said. "Rexthor is a professional killer. You are a diplomat." "I know," Jake said. "But I cannot back down now. Not after what I said to her." "There has to be another way," Dr. Kim from the medical team said. "Maybe we can negotiate different terms." "The Emperor will not negotiate," Jake replied. "He thinks he has found the perfect way to get rid of me and humiliate his daughter at the same time. If I refuse to fight, he will say it proves she is not worth fighting for." Jake looked back toward where Princess Zarath was being wheeled away by her guards. She looked back at him over her shoulder, and their eyes met across the distance. In that moment, Jake knew he was making the right choice. Besides, he said to his fellow humans, someone needs to show these aliens that humans do not give up when we find something worth fighting for. As they prepared for the combat, Jake tried not to think about how outmatched he was. Instead, he thought about Princess Zarath's smile when he told her she was amazing. He thought about her laugh when he shared stories from Earth. He thought about the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her ideas for making the galaxy a better place. If he was going to die today, at least it would be for something that mattered. At least it would be for love. The arena on Nexus Prime had been built for ceremonies and celebrations, but today it would host a fight to the death. Thousands of delegates from across the galaxy filled the seats to watch what many expected to be a very short and bloody combat. Word had spread quickly about the human who claimed to love the disabled Veltar princess. Jake stood in the preparation room trying to calm his racing heart. The human delegation had given him the best armor and weapons they could find, but everything felt wrong in his hands. The energy sword was too heavy and the force shield generator kept sparking. He was used to negotiating treaties, not fighting for his life. Dr. Kim finished checking Jake's medical sensors. "Your heart rate is through the roof," she said, worried. "Maybe you should reconsider this." "Too late for that now," Jake replied. He could hear the crowd outside getting louder as more beings arrived to watch the spectacle. Ambassador Collins paced, back and forth like a caged animal. "This is insane," he muttered. "Rex Thor has killed dozens of opponents in ritual combat. He once fought 3 warriors at the same time and won without getting a scratch." "Thank you for the encouraging words," Jake said dryly. "I am sorry," Collins said. "I just do not understand how this happened so fast. A week ago you barely knew this princess existed. Now you are willing to die for her." Jake checked his weapons one more time. "Sometimes life moves fast," he said. "Sometimes you meet someone who changes everything, and you have to decide what really matters to you." In the Veltar preparation area, General Rex Thor was getting ready for what he expected to be an easy victory. The general was a mountain of muscle and scars who had been engineered from birth to be the perfect warrior. His bronze skin had been enhanced with metal implants that made it nearly impossible to cut. His reflexes had been boosted to superhuman levels, and his strength could crush stone. "This will be over quickly," Rex Thor said to his assistants as they fitted him with ceremonial armor. "The human is soft and weak like all his kind. I will end his life with one strike, and we can get back to important matters." Emperor Velthok entered the preparation room with several of his advisors. "Do not kill him too quickly," the Emperor ordered. "Let the crowd see him suffer first. Let them all know what happens to those who mock the Veltar Empire." "As you command, Your Majesty," Rex Thor replied. "Should I make it look like an accident so the other humans do not demand revenge?" "No," the Emperor said with cold satisfaction. "Let them demand whatever they want. After today, no one will dare to treat my family as a joke again." Meanwhile, Princess Zarath sat in the royal viewing box, feeling like her heart was being torn apart. Her guards had tried to convince her not to watch, but she could not abandon Jake even if it meant seeing him die. She wore a white dress that was traditional for Veltar mourning because she was sure she would need it soon. Lady Kira, who was her personal attendant, sat beside her looking uncomfortable. Kira was one of the few Veltar who had always been kind to the princess, even if she was not exactly a friend. "Perhaps the human will surprise us," Kira said, trying to sound hopeful. "Rex Thor has never lost a fight," Princess Zarath replied quietly. "Jake is brave, but he is not a warrior. He is going to die because of me." "He is going to die because he chose to," Kira corrected gently. "He could have walked away, but he decided you were worth fighting for. That says something about both of you." The princess wiped tears from her eyes. "It says I am selfish. I should have told him to leave when my father first arrived. I should have protected him instead of letting him protect me." Ambassador Kethvar watched from his own viewing area with satisfaction. Everything was going according to his plan. The human would die, and the Veltar would be embarrassed by the whole situation. The other council members would see both species as unstable, and the hegemony would benefit from their weakness. The arena fell quiet as the combat was about to begin. A voice boomed over the speakers announcing the fighters. General Rexthor entered first to cheers from the Veltar section. He raised his massive sword over his head and roared like a wild beast. The crowd roared back. Then Jake entered and the arena went silent. He looked small and fragile compared to the general. His armor was clearly borrowed and did not fit quite right. His weapon looked like a toy next to Rexthor's massive blade. Many beings in the crowd started to feel sorry for him, but Jake walked to the center of the arena with his head held high. He would not show fear, even though his legs felt like water and his hands were shaking. When he reached the combat circle, he turned toward Princess Zarath's viewing box and placed his hand over his heart in a human gesture of love. Princess Zarath stood up from her chair and placed her own hand over her heart. Tears ran down her face, but she smiled at him across the distance. Whatever happened next, they both knew this moment was real. The combat referee explained the rules. This was a fight to the death or surrender. No outside help was allowed. No weapons, except what each fighter brought to the arena. The fight would continue until one fighter could not continue. General Rexthor grinned, showing teeth that had been sharpened to points. "I will try to make this quick, human," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Your princess should not have to watch you suffer too long." Jake activated his energy shield and drew his sword. "Her name is Zarath," he said firmly. "And she is worth more than your entire empire." The referee signaled for the fight to begin. Rexthor charged forward like a freight train expecting to end things immediately. His enhanced speed made him blur with motion as his massive sword came down toward Jake's head with enough force to split him in half. But Jake was not there when the blade arrived. He had rolled to the side at the last second, and the general's sword struck the arena floor, sending up sparks. Jake swung his own weapon at Rexthor's leg, but the energy blade barely scratched the general's enhanced skin. Rexthor spun around faster than seemed possible for someone his size. His backhand swing nearly took Jake's head off, but Jake managed to get his shield up just in time. The impact sent him flying across the arena, and he crashed into the wall hard enough to see stars. The crowd gasped. Jake struggled to his feet, spitting blood. His shield generator was smoking, and his left arm felt numb. Rexthor had barely started fighting, and Jake was already badly hurt. "Is that all?" Rexthor taunted. "I expected more from the species that claims to be so special." Jake wiped blood from his mouth and smiled. "I am just getting warmed up." But everyone watching could see that Jake was overmatched. Rexthor was faster and stronger and better trained. The general had weapons that could cut through steel, while Jake's equipment was already failing. This was not a fight, it was an execution. Princess Zarath gripped the railing of her viewing box so hard her knuckles turned white. She wanted to scream for them to stop, but she knew her father would never allow it. All she could do was witness the sacrifice Jake was making for her. Rexthor advanced more slowly this time. He was enjoying himself now and wanted to make the humans' defeat last longer. He swung his sword in complex patterns that showed off his skill while Jake backed away, looking for any advantage he could find. That was when Jake noticed something important. Rexthor was showing off because he had an audience. The general was not just trying to win, he was trying to look impressive while doing it. That meant he was not fighting as efficiently as he could. Jake had read about human military history during his training. Earth was a brutal world, where only the clever survived. Humans had learned to win fights not through superior strength, but through superior tactics. Maybe that was his only chance. Jake stopped backing away and started talking instead. "You know what I think, General," he said loudly. I think you are scared. Rexthor laughed. Scared of you, little human? Scared that everyone will find out you are not as great as you pretend to be. Jake continued. Scared that if this fight goes on too, long people might realize that even a weak human can stand against the mighty Rexthor. The general's face darkened with anger. I will show you weak, he snarled and attacked with renewed fury. But now, Jake was ready. Instead of trying to match Rexthor's strength, he used the general's anger against him. He dodged and weaved and made Rexthor chase him around the arena. Every time the general missed an attack, Jake would say something else to make him madder. My grandmother could swing a sword faster than that, Jake called out after avoiding another massive blow. Princess Zarath has better combat instincts than you do, and she cannot even walk, Jake taunted after another miss. The crowd began to murmur. This was not going the way anyone expected. Jake was still losing, but he was lasting much longer than seemed possible. More importantly, he was making Rexthor look clumsy and foolish. Princess Zarath felt a spark of hope in her chest. Jake was. Not winning, but he was not giving up either. He was fighting with his mind as much as his body, and that was something she understood completely. The fight had been going on for 20 minutes, and Jake was running out of energy. His borrowed armor was cracked in 3 places, and blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. His shield generator had finally died completely, and his sword was starting to flicker as its power cell drained. But something amazing was happening in the crowd. The beings who had come to watch a quick execution were now watching a real battle. Jake's refusal to give up despite being completely outmatched was starting to win their respect. Even some of the Veltar warriors were nodding in approval when Jake managed a particularly clever dodge. General Rexthor was getting frustrated. He had expected to finish this fight in the first few minutes, but the stubborn human kept finding ways to avoid his attacks. Worse, the crowd was starting to cheer for Jake instead of him. Rexthor could feel his reputation being damaged with every second the fight continued. Stop running and fight me properly, Rexthor roared after another. Swing missed by inches. This is how humans fight, Jake replied, breathing hard. We use our brains, not just our muscles. Jake was looking for any weakness he could exploit, but Rexthor seemed invincible. The general's enhanced skin deflected most attacks, and his superior speed made him nearly impossible to hit cleanly. Jake needed a miracle, or this was going to end badly very soon. That was when he remembered something Princess Zarath had told him about Veltar culture. They valued honor above everything else, including victory. A warrior who won through dishonorable means was considered worse than one who lost honorably. Jake stopped running and stood in the center of the arena. General, I have a question for you, he called out loud enough for everyone to hear. Rexthor paused in his advance, looking suspicious. What question, human? Do you think you are stronger than me? Jake asked. Rexthor laughed. Obviously, I am stronger. I am faster and better trained and better equipped. Any child could see that. Then why are you using enhanced skin and boosted reflexes to fight someone who has neither? Jake asked. Does the great General Rexthor need artificial advantages to defeat a weak human diplomat? The arena went quiet. Jake had just challenged Rexthor's honor in front of thousands of witnesses. In Veltar society, this was more serious than any physical attack. Rexthor's face turned dark with rage. I am enhanced because I earned the right to be enhanced through years of service. But do you need those enhancements to beat me? Jake pressed. Are you so weak without them that you cannot Defeat someone who has never been in real combat before. Princess Zarath realized what Jake was doing and felt her heart skip a beat. He was gambling everything on his understanding of her people's psychology. If he was wrong, Rexthor would kill him in the next few seconds. But Jake was not wrong. The crowd began to murmur, and Rexthor could hear what they were saying. They were wondering if he really needed all his advantages to beat one human. They were questioning whether this was really a fair fight. Emperor Velthak leaned forward in his seat. His daughter's human had just turned a simple combat into a test of honor. If Rexthor continued to fight with his enhancements and won the victory, would be hollow. If he turned off his enhancements, he would be fighting on equal terms with someone he had claimed was inferior. Rexthor looked around the arena and saw doubt in many eyes. His reputation as an honorable warrior was being questioned, and that was something he could not allow. "Fine," he snarled and reached for the control unit on his belt. "I will show you that I need no artificial help to crush you." He deactivated his skin enhancements and his reflexes boosters. Suddenly, he was just a very large and well-trained Veltar instead of a superhuman killing machine. Jake felt a surge of hope. The odds were still against him, but now at least they were in the same league physically. Rexthor was still bigger and stronger, but Jake had something the general did not have. He had a reason to fight that went beyond pride or duty. The combat resumed with renewed intensity. Rexthor attacked with desperate fury, trying to end things quickly before his moment of weakness could be exploited. But Jake was ready now. He had been studying the general's fighting style for 20 minutes, and he finally understood the patterns. Rexthor favored overhead strikes that used his superior reach and strength, but those same strikes left him momentarily unbalanced when they missed. Jake began timing his dodges to take advantage of those brief openings. The first time Jake managed to land a real hit, the crowd gasped. His energy sword cut across Rexthor's shoulder, leaving a shallow but visible wound. It was not serious, but it proved that the general could be hurt. Rexthor roared in pain and anger. No one had marked him in combat for over 10 years. He launched a series of wild attacks that drove Jake back toward the arena wall, but also left him increasingly off balance. Jake waited for his moment. When Rexthor committed to a massive swing that would have cut Jake in half if it connected, Jake dropped to the ground and swept the general's legs. Rexthor crashed to the arena floor, and Jake was on him instantly, but Rexthor was still dangerous, even on his back. He grabbed Jake's sword arm and began to squeeze with enough force to break bones. Jake cried out in pain but managed to drive his knee into Rexthor's ribs. The general grunted and his grip loosened just enough for Jake to pull free. Both fighters rolled away from each other and climbed to their feet. They were both bleeding now and both breathing hard. The crowd was on its feet cheering because they were witnessing something remarkable. This was no longer an execution. It was a real fight between two determined warriors. Princess Zarath could barely breathe. Jake was actually holding his own against Rexthor, and the impossible was starting to seem possible. But she could also see that both fighters were near exhaustion. The next few moments would decide everything. Rexthor and Jake circled each other warily. Both men knew that one mistake would end the fight. Rexthor still had advantages in size and training, but Jake had heart and determination. More importantly, Jake was fighting for love, while Rexthor was fighting for pride. "You cannot win human," Rexthor panted. "Even if you defeat me, you will never be accepted by our people. You will always be the alien who married the broken princess." Then I will be the luckiest alien in the galaxy. Jake replied, because she is worth more than your entire civilization. Rexthor charged one final time, putting everything he had left into a desperate attack. His sword came down like lightning toward Jake's head, but Jake had been waiting for exactly this moment. Instead of dodging away, he stepped forward inside Rexthor's reach, where the big sword could not hurt him. Jake's energy blade pierced Rexthor's armor just below the heart. Not deep enough to kill, but deep enough to end the fight. Rexthor staggered backward, looking down at the wound in shock. His sword fell from nerveless fingers and he dropped to one knee. The arena exploded in cheers. Jake Morrison had done the impossible. He had defeated the greatest warrior in the Veltar Empire through courage and cleverness and an unbreakable will to win. Jake swayed on his feet, barely able to stand, but he was alive and victorious. He looked up at Princess Zarath's viewing box and saw her crying tears of joy. She was making gestures with her hands that he recognized as sign language. She was saying, "I love you," over and over again. Emperor Velthak sat in stunned silence. He had been certain that Rexthor would kill the human quickly, and the matter would be settled. Instead, he had watched his greatest champion fall to someone he had dismissed as weak and worthless. More disturbing was what he had seen in his daughter's face during the fight. Princess Zarath had watched every moment with fierce pride and desperate hope. She had believed in Jake even when the situation seemed hopeless. The Emperor realized that his daughter loved this human with the kind of devotion that Veltar legends said could move mountains. Jake collapsed to his knees as exhaustion finally overtook him. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor to treat both fighters. As the doctors worked on him, Jake kept looking up at Princess Zarath, making sure she was real and safe. Ambassador Collins and the human delegation reached Jake first. "You magnificent, crazy fool," Collins said with tears in his eyes. "You actually did it." "Is she safe?" Jake asked weakly. "Did I win her freedom?" "You won everything," Dr. Kim said as she checked his injuries. "You have 3 broken ribs and a concussion, but you are going to live. More importantly, you just changed galactic history." Word of the fight spread across the station within minutes. A human diplomat had defeated a Veltar champion in single combat. More than that, he had done it for love. The story was already becoming legend. Princess Zarath was finally allowed to leave her viewing box and go to Jake. Her guards wheeled her chair down to the arena floor where Jake was being treated. When she reached him, she took his hand and held it against her cheek. "You beautiful fool," she whispered. "You could have died." "But I did not," Jake said, smiling despite his pain. "And now no one can say you are not worth fighting for." Emperor. Velthak approached them slowly. The crowd watched in tense silence, wondering what the Emperor would do now. He had promised that Jake could marry his daughter if he won, but everyone knew the Emperor hated being forced into anything. "Human," the Emperor said in a voice that carried across the arena. "You have defeated our champion in fair combat. You have shown courage and